Okay. Take a look at Perek Gimel. We got the Perek Gimel, Pasuk Chav Hey in Parsha in Vaeschanan. Gimel Chav Hey. Everybody should take a chumash. Gimel Chav Hey is on page 958. So we started talking about this last time about Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ebra nova eres aretz hatova shebevar Yarden. Let me cross over and see the land. Hahar hatova zel ve'alavadon. So first of all, we had mentioned last time that the word Ebra is related to the Hebrew word uberis, which is pregnant. That a woman who gives birth prematurely is not a good thing. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, for me to go into Eretz Yisrael right now would be premature, because there is a source. I finally found, so last time I mentioned, I wasn't sure, but I did find it. Yerachayim brings it down, that the ultimate redeemer will be Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So if Moshe Rabbeinu would go into Eretz Yisrael, the Beis HaMikdash would be rebuilt. Everything would be, the Beis HaMikdash would be rebuilt, but then the Beis HaMikdash would never be destroyed, because everything that Moshe Rabbeinu did was eternal. Torah is eternal. He looked into Eretz Yisrael. That's why I have an eternal yearning for Eretz Yisrael, because Moshe Rabbeinu looked into Eretz Yisrael. The Beis HaMikdash, if he built it, would be eternal, would never be destroyed. So then if Hashem got upset with Klal Yisrael, what would happen? Then the people would die. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, Ebrana, at one level, it means it would be premature for me to go into Eretz Yisrael now, because that will cause problems. Because then the Beis HaMikdash, and we have a pasuk that says, Kila Hashem chamaso alitzim ve'avonim, Hashem took out his anger on wood and stones. I mean, also on the people. But it would have been worse had the Beis HaMikdash not been destroyed. So that's that we mentioned last time. Then we mentioned Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go in as a bird. And people ask, why would you want to go into a bird? The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu want to go in. Why do you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? To eat the produce? He didn't want to go in to eat the produce. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't eat produce. He went 40 days without eating. So that's what we felt like about halfway through Tisha B'Av. So he went through 40 days without eating. And he wasn't thinking while he was on Har Sinai about what he's going to be eating after when he gets off. Like maybe, I don't know about you, but it did fleet. I had these fleeting thoughts on Tisha B'Av of what I'm going to be breaking my fast on. And some yeshiva guys usually break it. I think the minhag for yeshiva guys is pizza, but you don't take one slice of pizza. You take 3 slices and wedge them together, and what do you call it? And open your mouth like a snake swallowing a rodent. And take down 3 slices of pizza in neshima achas, so you kind of inhale it. The truth of the matter is it's all imagination, because you know as well as I do that after a fast, if you eat half a sandwich, you're pretty good. You can eat half a sandwich, I'm done. I'm okay. I'm not going to do that because I have a reputation to maintain. What am I going to tell people? People say, what did you eat? Half a slice of pizza. What? What happened to you? How much are you Rita? You could have done better than that. So Moshe Rabbeinu obviously did not want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Page 958. He didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael to eat the fruit. So what did he want to do? The Gemara says he wanted to fulfill the mitzvahs of Eretz Yisrael. So then before Shem asked, well, okay, then the Medrash says, he said, let me go in as a bird. Problem is that birds are putter from mitzvahs. You understand the problem over here. Moshe Rabbeinu, the reason Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go into Eretz Yisrael is to fulfill the mitzvahs. That's what the Gemara says. He wants to go into Eretz Yisrael to fulfill the mitzvahs. And then he begs, let me go in like a bird. Yeah, but that's not consistent with the Gemara, because the Gemara says he wanted to go in to fulfill the mitzvahs. You ever see a bird wearing tefillin? Right? You ever see a bird checking his nest for shatnez? Ever see a mezuzah on a bird's nest? The birds don't have mitzvahs. So why would Moshe Rabbeinu want to go in on a bird? So it's a valid question. You understand the question in the light of the Gemara. So it's a Gemara question. So Reb Moshe Feinstein says, you see from here, that Moshe Rabbeinu, sometimes in life, even if he can't do a mitzvah, get to the area of Kedusha. Get to where there's Kedusha. Get to the area where they at least hang around. We always recommend for parents to have their children hang around the shul on Shabbos. Not to disturb, because the halacha says kids shouldn't run around in shul, and they shouldn't make noise in shul and disturb people. Only adults are allowed to do that. The kids shouldn't run around in shul and make noise and disturb people. But the kids should get used to the idea of being, if you ever go to a Hasidic shtibel, and the kids are running around in a Hasidic shtibel, and if you dare tell the kids, shh, some of the guys are going, shh, shh. What are you shushing the kids for? In other words, they get used to, that's your second home. That's your second home. in a what do you call it? By the goyim, a church. How often do they go? You go once a week. Help yourself to some wafers, some wine. Maybe help yourself to something out of the money plate. Right? And you're out of it. I remember they said to the guy, hey, which church do you belong to? He said, the first this, that, the first church of this or that. He said, well, I haven't seen you there for a couple of years. I didn't say I'm a fanatic. So somebody once said, if absence makes the heart grow fonder. So some yeshiva guys are really fond of Shachris. The idea that you take kids into the show, let them get used to it. I had my Zadie's brother was living in Israel in the 20s, and he was secular, and he was a pacifist. So his wife had 2 children at home. I think one was 3 and one was 1, 2 boys. And he decided there was some trouble with some Arabs. He went into the Arab village to try to broker some sort of peace agreement with them, and he was never seen again. He disappeared. So in halacha, his wife becomes an aguna. An aguna is a woman whose husband has disappeared. You're probably learning about that in Gittin today, I assume. You came across it. In Kedusha, that you were learning Kedusha today, and you came across it today. Yeah, I figured. The knowing glance over there was exchanged. So aguna means a woman, literally a woman who's chained up. A woman who's chained up. Aaron, do the thing. Or somebody who knows how to do it. A woman who's chained up because now she doesn't have a husband, but she can't remarry because she doesn't know maybe her husband's alive. So this was a secular woman with 2 little children now, and her husband disappeared. They don't know where he is. She called my Zadie. My Zadie was living in Chicago at the time. She said, what do I do? So he told her, move near a yeshiva. And the yeshiva will become the father for those 2 children. That's what she did. She moved near a yeshiva. They became religious. As a result, they became religious. And eventually they what do you call it? Now, both of them both these boys are now grandparents many times over, but this is back in the day. And they moved their yeshiva. The yeshiva, they eventually became, the remarkable thing about the story was she was living somewhere outside a place called Givatayim, which is near Tel Aviv somewhere. And she owned a house. She had a little house or a little apartment. And there was a major builder wanted to go and build a complex in that area. So he asked her what she wants for her property, because to him she said, I want 3 apartments. One for her and one for each of her boys when they get married. And she exchanged it. She got 3 apartments, and each one of them ended up using that. That was their basis for what do you call it? But you see, there's an idea of Kedusha. It used to be, not anymore as much, but the Stipler writes that in every yeshiva, mainstream yeshivas, not like Ohr Somayach, where everybody here is very, very focused, but which is true, by the way. When I came to Ohr Somayach many hundreds of years ago, there was a guy here at Ohr Somayach. When I came here as a bacher, there was a guy in Ohr Somayach who was learning here who was an FFB. You know what an FFB is, right? Fractured from birth. And so this guy was an FFB, he was a from birth. And the guy said he was a serious learner. And I asked him, why did he come to Ohr Somayach? He could have easily gone to Mir or any of the other yeshivas that are almost as good as Ohr Somayach. And I said to him, why did you come to Ohr Somayach? It was mostly Balei Tshuvas. We were 2 of the only FFBs in the yeshiva. And he was a serious guy. I was trying to get serious. He was a serious guy. So I said, why'd you come here? He says, because everybody in this base medrash is learning. At Ohr Somayach, there was nobody here, guys with long hair, short hair, two-toned hair, an earring, a nose ring, whatever they had. But at the end of the day, everybody in that base medrash was learning. He said, this is a base medrash everybody's learning. And every base medrash, certain guys are the official batlon. They kind of move around looking for something to do. It happens. So the Stipler writes, even so, it's good for them because you're within the walls of the yeshiva. You're protected. You're a Noach's Ark. You're protected in the walls of yeshiva. Nowadays, with the advent of technology, so it's not as safe. Because with technology, so a person could be in yeshiva and you could be all over the world and doing all sorts of things. You can even gamble in the convenience of your home. You don't even have to go to a casino. So it's not as much. But there is this idea of gravitate towards Kedusha. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to be a bird to go into Eretz Yisrael so he could see. He just breathed the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. That's what. Do you know that there's an opinion actually in when you say Alamichya, after you eat cake and you say Al Mechi, excuse me 1 second. There is an opinion, we say, Al Mechi, that's about how fast I say it, by the way. We should eat the produce and we should be satiated. We should be satiated from the goodness of the fruits in Eretz Yisrael. There actually, there's an opinion in halacha that when you eat the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, you don't say that. We don't paskin that way, but there is such an opinion that you don't say v'nizba mituva. Why? Because we shouldn't be eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael because we want to enjoy the fruits of Eretz Yisrael. We should be eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael because of the kedusha. So other poskim say that's what we mean. V'nizba mituva, that by eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, we absorb the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. If you have a choice of eating 2 pomegranates, one that comes from Eretz Yisrael, one that comes from California, so eat the one from Eretz Yisrael because the one from Eretz Yisrael has got the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, grew in Eretz Yisrael. We don't necessarily feel it. You don't feel the effects of the kedusha, but you see it. We'll talk about that in a second. No different than putting on tefillin every day. You put on tefillin every day. Did you feel any different after you put on tefillin than before you put on tefillin? You know, maybe your arm turned blue. Maybe that was but other than that, you don't necessarily feel a difference. But the same thing happens, you see in the physical world with vitamins. You take a vitamin every day, you don't feel the effects of the vitamin. But every health store will convince you to spend your money on the vitamins because they're going to make you grow big and strong. And you take the vitamins, and the vitamins apparently they do work. I know that women often are lacking iron. That's a very common thing. Women lack iron, and they have to take iron pills. And they take the iron pills, they start feeling better. Did you see the effect? There's a cumulative effect. Some medications are a cumulative effect. Kedusha is a cumulative effect. Putting on the tefillin is having an effect on us. Eating matzah on Pesach is having an effect on us. You don't see it. You don't see the effect. There's something called subliminal suggestion. You know what subliminal suggestion is? They used to have this in the movies. Not that any of us watched movies too often. They used to have in the movies, now this goes back to I think about the 50s or the 60s. When you're watching a movie, the movie is a series of frames that are flying past you, and they move very quickly. Now you can do that with a book also. You can draw a picture on the corner of the book like we used to do in school, in class, and you do it like that, and it looks like a movie when you draw a picture. So that's how movies work. What they used to do is they would slip in one frame in the movie with be a big box of Milk Duds. One of those weird sized boxes that you could only get in a movie theater, which is twice the size and 7 times the price of a regular box. And the effect on, so you don't even know you're seeing it. You don't. It's moving too fast for you to know consciously that you're seeing it. The effect on the subconscious was so powerful. You know, next thing you know, everybody at the intermission or some even not waiting, they're all out there buying Milk Duds. And they don't even know why. I don't even like Milk Duds. I'm Fleischicks. What am I doing eating Milk Duds? And the answer is you're going out there. It's so powerful that they made it illegal because it has that effect, the subliminal effect on you. That comes from the Telzer Rosh Yeshiva said that once. That's the idea, the subliminal suggestion, and they made it illegal. So all mitzvahs that we do, the kedusha, it's having an effect on us. One way or another, it has an effect. That's the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why. So there's an opinion. Don't say v'nizba mituva because we're not looking to eat the fruits of Eretz Yisrael because the fruits of Eretz Yisrael are so delicious. We're eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael because of the benefit. So there are poskim that say. So that's what we should have in mind. V'nizba mituva, we should be satiated with the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. And I saw a pshat. I think the Meshech Chochmah, if I'm not mistaken, he says an amazing pshat here. If you look at this, Moshe Rabbeinu says there's a medrash. And the medrash says that when Moshe Rabbeinu asks to go into Eretz Yisrael, the medrash says, now listen to this medrash because you have to figure this out. It says, you killed the Egyptian in Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu, remember he killed the Egyptian and he buried him in the sand. The medrash says, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you killed the Egyptian and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? What does that mean? Was it the right thing to do or wrong thing to do to kill the Egyptian? 100% the right thing to do. Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Egyptian. He was hurting a Jew. Different opinions whether he was trying to kill the Jew or not. Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't find any criticism in the Torah itself that Moshe Rabbeinu was criticized for killing the Egyptian. Dasan and Aviran snitched on him, so he had to run away. We don't find any. What does that mean? What does that medrash mean? You killed the Egyptian and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? What does that mean? What's wrong with killing the Egyptian? Some of them needed dying. I mean, Hashem killed a whole bunch of them at Yam Suf. Well, what's wrong with killing an Egyptian? Especially he's hitting a Jew. Good question, right? What's up, shot? So it goes back to what we said earlier. If Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael, what would have happened? Beis HaMikdash would have been built. More Jews would have died. So Hashem was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, you killed the Egyptian? That was to save one Jewish life, you killed an Egyptian. So why would you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? That's going to cause, you showed that you care about Jewish lives. So if you're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, that's going to cause more Jewish lives. That's how I explained the Medrash. Why? By killing the Egyptian, you demonstrated that Jewish life, one Jewish life means something to you. So if you're going to kill the Egyptians, why would you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? That's going to cost more Jewish lives. Because the Beis HaMikdash won't be destroyed. Hashem will take out his anger on the people. And therefore, better that you should go into Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Take a look at Perek Daled. Now the last pasuk on page, that's still on 958. The last pasuk in Perek Gimel, 7 lines from the bottom. Moshe Rabbeinu, as he goes through this, he says, "Vaneshev bagai mul beis peor." We dwelled in a place called the Gai, opposite Beis Peor. Remember Baal Peor? Baal Peor was that kind of bizarre form of idol worship, where they would relieve themselves in front of the idol. The Gemara says that there was a woman who was sick. She said, if I get better, I'll worship every idol in the world. And when she got to Baal Peor, and she asked the priests of Baal Peor how you worship, they said to her, well, you eat certain fruits, and then you drink beer, and then you relieve yourself in front of the idol. She said, I'd rather be sick than worship an idol like that, than do that. And so the Gemara says that it was a very weird, and we're going to come back to this in a second. Now look at the next pasuk. V'atay Yisrael, shma'el ha'chuki ve'al mishpatim asher ani malamed eschem lasos. Obey the chukim and mishpatim. And again, the difference between a chok and a mishpat. Anybody remember what's the difference between a chok and a mishpat?
Chok, no reason for it, right? Like meat and cheese.
Theoretically, there's no reason that we could relate to. And a mishpat seems to be with a little bit more human logic behind it. Even though every mishpat has an aspect of chok in it too. Because something like tefillin, which is considered a mishpat, and we're told that tefillin is a badge of honor, that you put on a badge where you have Hashem on your head and on your arm. So tefillin is a badge of honor of sorts, but between me and you, why you got to spend $1,200 on a couple of leather boxes for a 13-year-old bar mitzvah boy who's probably going to leave it on the bus within the next week? So that turns a mishpat into a chok. But there is a something. A chok is something that we can't relate to a chok. We don't understand. So Torah says, obey these chukim yesher ani melamed eschem lasos. That you should live and come to the land Hashem is giving you. Now, what's the connection between this and the previous pasuk? Psukim in the Torah are juxtaposed for a reason. What's the connection? What's this got to do with the previous pasuk? Over here, he tells you obey the chukim and the mishpatim. In the previous pasuk, we're telling you where they were located. The answer is Baal Peor. That form of idol worship also makes no sense. For a goy, if you'd say to him, worship this idol, okay, so there's a story, this guy walked on water, and and this guy, what do you call it, and there's a, what do you call it, the virgin birth, all sorts of, okay, that makes sense. Buddha I have a little trouble with. Buddha's that little fat guy who can't afford a shirt, and somehow people worship him. Okay, but over here, to go and do the grossest thing possible, where the Gemara says that there was a Jewish man, and he was a wagon driver driving this non-Jewish woman, and she said, just one second, I want to run in there and worship, and she goes into the Baal, and she worships the Baal, so she comes out, he said, well, how do you worship that idol? So she explains to him. So he says, oh, good, give me a chance too, just wait for me. So he goes in, and in order to degrade it and deface it, so he goes, and he relieves himself in front of the Baal, and then he wipes himself right on the idol's nose to try to insult it, to try to degrade it. And the priests of the Baal went wild. They said, wow, we've never seen anybody serve with such devotion. So the plan backfired. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense. So the Meforshim say, yeah, Moshe Rabbeinu is emphasizing that, the Torah commands us to fulfill the chukim. It's a chok, we got to fulfill it. Shatnez, not eat chazer, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, but listen, guys, that also doesn't make sense, and they do it. And if they could do something which totally makes no sense, so I guarantee you Hashem's Torah, which does ultimately make sense, just do the chukim. You have to understand it. And I've said many times, people who come to Judaism and they say, well, listen, if I understand it, I'll do it. I met guys like this over the years. Whatever I understand, I'll do. And whatever I don't understand, I won't do. I tell you, quit now. Because I guarantee I'll show you a lot of things you don't understand. High on the list is spending $150 for a lemon on Sukkot. You can explain to me, well, it's the heart and it's the lulav, poke the something in the eye. For $800. For $800, I use a slingshot. I don't have to poke him in the eye with a sharp piece of palm tree. For 800 shekels. And you buy a lemon that costs you, it looks like a lemon. It looks to be like a lemon, except that a lemon you can actually use productively. Estrog, you can't even squeeze it out. Nothing happens from that. Oh, they make estrog jam after Sukkot. My favorite. You ever had estrog jam? Me either. Right? Estrog is just what they call it what's the English word? A citrion.
Citrus.
It's a citrus fruit. They call it the citrion. It's like a French car. Right? It's a citrion. Right? Great. So you gave it a name. Right? But at the end of the day, it's about as useful as a French car. And so what are you going to do with what are you going to do with it? And you pay $150 for it, $150 for an esrog. Then you'll take a look at it, you come home, and you take one look at it, it's got a little black dot. Uh-oh. Then you go to a posek. I don't know, is it black or it's brown? Takes a look at it, and puzzle. There goes $150. The whole thing doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's the heart, and this is the spine, and this is the eyes, and this is the wonderful lips. Terrific, beautiful. It'd be even more beautiful if I didn't have to spend $800 for it. That's at the end of the day, you understand it. Don't understand it. We do it. You don't have to try to understand it because it won't make sense. Then your wife takes it, and she does the mitzvah also. Ever see a woman try to shake a lulav in an esrog? They have trouble with directions. It's really not that complicated. It's straight, side, back, side, up, down. They come up with something so creative, I'm telling you. If they would just invest that creativity into making cake, it's like, just stay far away, by the way. Just stay far away. If you value if anything on your face at all, just stay far away. And they're poking it around. She's poking around that. Next thing you know, oops, did you need this part? Yeah, that's called a pitum. Oh, really? It's so cute. Not anymore, it ain't. Right? It's $150, not cute. So none of it makes sense. Okay. So then Moshe Rabbeinu says like this. Here's the one I wanted to get to today. Pasuk Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Lo sosifu al hadavar asher ani mitzaveh eschem. Do not add on to the commands. V'lo sigru mimenu, do not detract. Lishmar es mitzvos Hashem Elokecha asher ani mitzaveh eschem. Do not add on and do not detract from the mitzvahs which Hashem your God has given you. So the question here is, first of all, let's get from a halachic point of view. Not everything you do extra is called adding or detracting. Specifically, it means tampering with the inherent formula of the mitzvah. So, for example, if a tefillin has to have 4 parshios, it has 4 paragraphs. In the hand tefillin, it's all on one parchment, and in the head tefillin, it's on 4 different parchments, and that's the machlokas Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam about the order of the parchments in the head tefillin. That's the whole difference between them. If you were to write a fifth paragraph or a 5th parchment, that you're transgressing a Torah command. With all the good intentions, you're transgressing a Torah command because you're adding on to the mitzvah. To wear 2 pairs of tefillin, that you're allowed to do because you're not tampering with the inherent mitzvah. And there are people who wear 2 pairs of tefillin. Some Sfardis, the head, the Chazal say the head has room for 2 pairs of tefillin. And there are people who wear 2 pairs, like it looks like a little trade. and they have some of them wear their yarmulke over one of them to cover it over. But that's not considered tampering with it. But if a person were to, for example, if you take a lulav, an esrog, you take the 4 species, and you figure there's a lot of yellow and a lot of green. A little red would go in there good too. So you take a rose, and you wrap it all together, then you're transgressing with baltosif. Then you're over on baltosif. You're adding on. That's the technical description of the prohibition. The question is, I understand, I think in life we understand, not to detract. What's wrong with doing a little bit extra? You know, if your wife tells you to wash the dishes, so to not do some of the dishes, that's not acceptable. You're meant to do all the dishes. Well, I don't do forks. You got to do the forks also. You can't. You understand not to detract. But what's wrong with putting a little more soap on it, and then after you clean it up, then you take a towel and you buff it up to make it shine. No wife would say to you, "Oh, you did too much." Those are words you will rarely hear, gentlemen, when you're married. I can almost guarantee you will rarely hear your wife say, "Oh, you did too much." Other words you may hear, but not that you did too much. I got my wife, here, this is a good one. Oh, this you're going to love. Early on in marriage, my wife, and this is very common for husbands to hear this, my wife said to me, "You're very picky." I think the one that I remember is somebody set the table, and instead of a big soup spoon, there was a little soup spoon, or a big fork, there was a little fork. So I made a mistake on the silverware. So I got up and I switched it for a different one. And so my wife said to me, "You're very picky." So I remember her buying clothing for a 6-month-old baby who doesn't appreciate either way what you put on him. Could have put a plastic bag on him, he'd be fine. And it took her a long time to pick it out. And I said, "Oh, it looks kind of picky." She said, "No, this is choice selection." I'm picky, this is choice selection. Okay. Just a short few weeks ago, I have a son-in-law who he for any sort of cake that's made with vanilla, he likes natural vanilla flavoring as opposed to artificial vanilla flavoring. So my wife was mentioning, she said, "Wow, he's really a connoisseur." So I said to her, "Oh, he's a connoisseur, huh? If it was me, you'd say I'm picky." Right? She didn't have an answer. It was worth 40 years to wait for that moment. It took 40 years. I know, he's a connoisseur. So from now on, whenever I switch a spoon, I could just a connoisseur. Pass the connoisseur, will you? Hashem loves the righteous. So the what do you call it? So I understand you shouldn't detract. What's wrong with adding on? What's wrong with adding on? Oh, the answer is that Hashem's wisdom, which decrees the mitzvah, which created the mitzvah, which gave us the mitzvah, that wisdom is very precise. There are a lot of things in life. If you go to a pharmacist, in the old days, a pharmacist actually had to grind stuff up and put it together. That's why pharmacy school was very, very hard. It took 6 years, pharmacy. Nowadays, a pharmacist is basically a glorified cashier. It's really what he is. All he's doing is he's taking the medicine off and he's putting on a thing. He puts on a lab coat so he looks like a pharmacist. And he's just registering what went out. He's not mixing medicines. But back in the day, let's say you go to a pharmacist and he's got to give you, and he'd say, "Well, we'll throw in a little bit more of that. Just for good luck. We'll throw in a little bit more of that stuff that makes you really tired." So, or the stuff that makes you what do you call, feel good. Right? Whatever he throws in. You could kill somebody like that. A little bit. What's wrong? It's a detracting. I understand. You need antibiotics. There's got to be a right amount of antibiotics. So too little is not good for you. Your sore throat won't go away. So put in a little bit more antibiotics for good measure. Then the guy's going to, what do you call it? Then the next thing you know, he's got an earache too. So we understand there are certain things in life. It's like this guy comes home and he says to his wife, he says the couple goes out to eat. And the wife, where they ate, she makes this delicious apple cinnamon cake. So he comes home, he says to his wife, maybe he can get the recipe. She calls up her friend, she gets the recipe, okay. She goes and she makes this apple cinnamon cake. Husband takes a bite, wife can't wait for the husband to taste it. He takes a bite, it's like, Wife says, "What's wrong?" Somehow it's different than the one we had. So she calls her friend up. She says, I don't know, my husband didn't like it. What happened? She says, well, did you use those special Jonathan apples that I told you? She goes, no, I didn't have any apples. I used pears. Uh-huh. Well, did you use that shortening, that special shortening, the Crisco shortening? I didn't have shortening. I used olive oil. Uh-huh. And you used the fresh ground cinnamon? I didn't have any cinnamon, so I used oregano. Uh-huh. So your apple cinnamon cake somehow didn't taste quite like apple cinnamon cake. It tastes like something out of a Stephen King novel. You know, it didn't taste like apple cinnamon cake. So what happened? You tampered with the recipe. In any recipe, if a recipe calls for a certain amount of salt, you put in too much salt, you ruin it. You put in too much sugar, you could ruin it. You put in too much oregano, you put in too much cinnamon, you could ruin it. So the Torah is a what do you call it? The Torah is a recipe. And it's a very precise recipe of trace minerals like you need in a pharmaceutical prescription. And too much could also, what do you say, Rizzo?
What about all the xeras that we added?
Oh, I was waiting for somebody to ask that. The xeras of the Rabbanan, they didn't tamper with any inherent mitzvahs. What they did is they created a fence. They didn't tell you that you should add another Parsha to your tefillin just in case. Just in case the sofer messed up on some of them, so you add another. They didn't do that. All they said was, in order to distance us from sin, we're decreeing in the power of a Beis Din that you should not eat chicken with milk either. Because if you eat chicken with milk, you may end up eating beef with milk. They didn't tamper with the recipe itself. And by the way, Rabbi Rockmill, Zichrono Livracha, he once said that one of the differences between where you could tell where it's a legitimate takana or it's something that conservatives came up with, what was the first thing the conservative movement did? By the way, many of the conservative rabbis, the original rabbis, they were Shomer Shabbos, you could eat in their house. Reform nowadays, you can't. You know, it's probably half most not even Jewish. The conservative rabbis, what did they do? For the good of Judaism, what did they do? They said, listen, we need to keep Jews close to Judaism. You could drive your cars to shul on Shabbos. Friday night, you could drive to shul. The difference between what these movements have done and the Rabbanan, among other differences, but one of the glaring differences, generally the Takana de Rabbanan made our lives a little bit less convenient, not more convenient. Rabbanan didn't say, well, problem of meat and milk, so you better eat some meat and milk together, just to remind yourself that it's forbidden. Go figure that out. You better do it so that you'll know that it's forbidden. They didn't do that. They never made it easier for us. There's a lot of misconception. People think the Rabbanan we're just a bunch of grouchy old men sitting in a back room smoking cigars. Like, let's see, how can we make their lives difficult today? That's not what the Rabbanan were the biggest tzaddikim, Talmidei Chachamim who had a Beis Din, and they assembled the Beis Din and said, for the good of the people, so that they don't sin and incur various punishments, we're going to create a fence for them. Do you ever see these guys? I've seen pictures of guys like in Niagara Falls. They're all the way on the edge, looking down at Niagara Falls, as if you can't see it if you're a few feet back. Hey, look at that. Oh, wow, a cliff. Oh, you couldn't see it from over there. And also, I've seen these people by waterfalls. What if you slip? There's no room. There's no wiggle room over there. You're standing. What if you sneeze? Well, the guy behind you has a bad day. He gets dizzy all of a sudden. Oops. What happened? There's no wiggle room there. So what did the Rabbanan do? The Rabbanan instituted so that there should be a fence so that if you do slip up, at least you didn't go off the cliff. But they didn't tamper with the original recipe. Idea number one. Idea number two is a famous story from the Dubna Maggid. Many of you probably heard this. Guy comes over to his friend, and he says to his friend, could I borrow a shovel? Sure. Next day he comes back, knocks on the door. He says, here. He gives him the big shovel with a little shovel. He says, what's the little shovel? He says, your shovel had a baby, Mazel Tov. He goes, Because your shovel had a baby. The guy's thinking to himself, listen, guy wants to give me a shovel, I'll take the shovels. He says, okay, Mazel Tov, I'll take the shovel, thanks a lot. The next day comes can I borrow a broom? He says, yeah, sure. Takes the broom, comes back next day with two little brooms. Says, what now? Says, Mazel Tov, your broom had twins. Listen, this guy wants to give me stuff. I'll say, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. I said, great. The next day knocks on the door, he says, could I borrow your silver candlestick? He says, yeah, sure. So he gives him the silver candlestick. The next day he's waiting, nothing happens. 2 days pass, nothing. 3 days, nothing happens. Probably getting a little nervous. He goes to the other guy's house and he knocks on the door. The guy answers the door, looks very sad. He says, what happened to where's my candlestick? The candlestick died. He says, what? Candlesticks can't die. Because them brooms can have twins. So the Maggid says that the problem with adding on, even if our instinct is that there's no real problem adding on, in life, when you add on in one area, you're going to detract somewhere else. And chances are, with all the goodwill of adding on, but it's going to come off somewhere else. Now, I want to tell you a very important principle. I'm convinced, it's my own idea, I've seen it happen, and it's my own idea as far as how I define it. I'm convinced that most people, unless we're mamish the Gedolim like Reb Chaim Kanievsky and the Rav Shteimans, that's all these people, the Moshe Feinsteins of the world, most of us have what I want to call a limit of religious energy. That means we're good and we're constantly getting better, but in the course of a day, you know, I can't, is it like Reb Chaim Kanievsky learning, his idea of a vacation was leaving Yerushalayim, going to Tzfas and learning all day in Tzfas, where nobody could bother him. That was his idea of a vacation. It's not my idea. And most of us have limited religious energy. And what I think happens is sometimes people want to know, should I take on a stringency? And there are all sorts of chumras available. The answer is, for certain people, taking on a chumrah is a great thing when it doesn't sap your energy. There are people who actually enjoy chumras. There are people who actually enjoy grammar, you know, dikduk, you know, okay, they're now no friends of mine, you know, but they you know, there are people who actually enjoy Dr. Pepper, okay, you know, the world's made up of all sorts of people. But there are people who enjoy chumras. They enjoy a chumrah like you enjoy playing ping pong. It's a challenge. You enjoy the challenge. You enjoy the. There are other people who take on a chumrah, but it's oppressive. So a person takes on a chumrah. Let's say a person takes on a chumrah that he's not going to he's not going to carry on Shabbos, even in a good eruv, and he takes on it. There is such a chumrah. There are people who do that. There are people who do that and they enjoy it. They get a high from it. There are other people who feel like this is ridiculous. I wanted to carry my I wanted to carry, and I can't even carry a siddur. I got to use the old beaten up siddur and shul. And they're upset. They're frustrated. So what they're doing, that's taking a lot of religious energy out of you. And then that religious energy, which should really be channeled into not speaking Lashon Hara and getting up on time and getting to shul before Yishtabach, and that religious energy is being channeled somewhere else. Each person according to his level, and each person according to... So you have to know where that religious energy is. If you put it in somewhere, and if I'm not on the level to invest that religious energy in this area, it's going to come, and I do, it's going to come off somewhere else. There are times we don't have a choice. If you're on an airplane and they don't have a kosher meal for you, you're going to have to activate the religious energy and just eat bananas and apples for 12 hours. But it's taking a lot of religious energy out of it. You're right. But there we have no choice. There we have no choice. It's not always like, you know, somebody said to me, I don't enjoy the 9 days. Somebody actually said that to me this year. I don't enjoy the 9 days. Good. That's the attitude. That's great. Somebody actually said to me years ago in Ohr Somayach, somebody said to me, you know, Rabbi, I don't enjoy Tisha B'Av. I said, really? I mean, you don't like at about 11 a.m. having a little nagging headache? And a little lower back pain from sitting low on a chair? You don't like that? The guy's looking at me and I said, of course you don't enjoy it. Who's supposed to do it? No, you're a Purim guy. I'm a Purim man. Well, I got news for you. Purim's 1 day out of the year. You're not supposed to enjoy Tisha B'Av. Who said you're supposed to enjoy Tisha B'Av? Oh, Yom Kippur, my favorite. Who said you're supposed to enjoy it? Yom Kippur we should enjoy, by the way, because Tisha B'Av is morning. Yom Kippur is a day of cleansing. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you know, Jewish mothers, from Jewish mothers, the kindest, the sweetest, the most noble creature known to man. There is one time they turn cruel beyond anybody's imagination. You know when that is? When they're washing the face of a 4-year-old child. You ever see a mother washing her 4-year-old's face with a washcloth? And he screams, you are not walking out of this house with that face. You know? And she scrubs it away. I've seen it. It breaks your heart. You know, come on, kid. Come on, kid, run away. It's like the frum woman's version of waterboarding. you know, it's just crunching away, right? But so at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of energy that a person has. You don't enjoy it, that's too bad. That you have to do. Tisha B'Av is something you have to do. Yom Kippur, you have to fast. You could be on Shabbos and the lights are off. I don't enjoy groping around in a room where the lights are off and I'm trying to find socks and banging my head on something that somebody left or slipping on my grandchild put something in the room over there that I didn't know, and it's called a roller skate or a marble or so. Okay, but that's life. That way I don't have a choice. But there are other areas. Who told you to take on the Chumrah? Rav Scheinberg, that's all. When people would ask about Chumrah, he said, just be machmer on Lashon Hara. Don't talk Lashon Hara. That's a good Chumrah right there. But it's not a Chumrah. It's a Mikra Adin. So that we don't have a choice about. Okay, one more point. The next pasuk, and this is really it completes the subject here. So we said don't add on, and then it says like this, top of page 960. Einechem haros es asher asa Hashem beValpor. You've seen what Hashem did at Balpor. Ki chol ha'ish asher holach achrei Balpor yishmido Hashem lokechem mikra. Hashem destroyed every man who got involved with Balpor, so Hashem destroyed them. But if you look at it, what's that got to do with what Moshe Rabbeinu just said? He just said, don't add on to the mitzvahs. We got through Baal Peor already. You got back to that again? Why, Moshe Rabbeinu just said, don't add on to the mitzvahs. Don't detract from the mitzvahs. So why are you telling me about Baal Peor? Tell me about tefillin. Tell me about tzitzis. Tell me about lulav and what are you talking about Baal Peor again? So I saw, who says this? I don't remember. One of the Parsha says, where did idol worship even begin? The whole concept of worshiping, where did it begin? If you look at the Rambam talks about Dor Enosh, the generation of Enosh, all the way back at the time of creation. And what did they do? They were all God believers. There's nobody who didn't believe in Hashem. What did they do? They started adding on, they were adding on the heavenly, what do you call it, the stars and the constellations. So they added on because they felt, well, that's a way of honoring God by worshiping those that He created, even the stars, the moon, all that. They're wonderful, terrific, marvelous. But where did that end up? Where does that lead to? Eventually, look at what happened. It culminates in some sort of ridiculous idea of Baal Peor. It didn't start with Baal Peor. It started with the stars. If I'm honoring God, I'll honor His servants as well. Is that a form of honor? So we'll honor God, honor His servants. And where does it lead to? Where does it end up with a Baal Peor? That the Torah says, don't add and don't detract. You think that adding on is good. Look where adding on could lead you. And I've seen this. You see this where people do things and people add on in their Yiddishkeit. And I've seen guys who've taken on too much. We had a guy once here at Ohr Somayach. Not once. We had more than once. I remember one specific guy who was, he came in here completely secular. And within a few weeks, he's already got a black hat and he's sprouting payas and he's, talking Aramaic. And everything, and it was throwing stones at cars on Tuesdays. I mean, this guy was really, really, really devoted. And the next thing you know, one day, the guy simply picked up, went up to his room, put on his T-shirt, his blue jeans, he left the yeshiva, never saw him again. It took on who told you to do that? Who told you to take on so much? Who told you to make your own life difficult? It is challenging. I don't want to call it difficult, but Yiddishkeit is challenging enough. It's challenging enough without us having to inconvenience. Who told you shouldn't be lenient? There are many times in halacha, there's a leniency and there's a stringency. And that's why a posek, later on in life, when you get married and you're living in a community and you have a communal rav, part of the job of that rav is to know you as a person. And when you come to ask the rav of the shaila, the rav looks at you. He's not just looking in the book and telling you what it says. Don't do it or you die. That's not how it works. He's not looking at the book. He's looking at you as a person also. And if he knows, the more he knows you, he does you at your level, you could be a little more rigid here. You should be lenient. He's heard other questions that you've asked him. He knows what you are, what your attitude, what your struggles are. So he knows it's not just one size fits all. And that's what the Torah is telling you. So you don't add, you don't do what the Torah says. That's, and you'll see with kids, you'll see when you're raising teenagers especially, that sometimes you get to the point where the teenager, all of a sudden he does something, and I say, listen, I didn't ask you to do that. Do what I ask you to do. Don't do what you want to do. First, do what I ask you to do before you go and do me other favors. You know, the things that I asked you to do, that you couldn't do. But also you decided, because this is fun, that's what you want to do. Well, don't do me a favor. Just do what I ask you to do. All right. Okay, so we are going to have shir tomorrow, by the way.